the top stories, Skilek provides update on island-wide restoration, flood damage to agriculture being assessed in Antigua and Barbuda, and China defends rule that led to Hong Kong politicians' dismissal. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday the 13th November 2020. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Nationally, as restoration efforts continue at the St. Kitts Electricity Company, or Skilek, as of 8:30 a.m., technicians were able to restore power on several feeders, namely Frigate Bay, Bastille North and South, Marriott 1 and 2, Canada, Bayfords, Port Zante, Sandy Point, Industrial Site, and SSMC. Skilek wished to thank the general public for their patience and the Skilek crew who worked throughout the night to restore the power plant at 3:45 a.m. Full restoration is expected later today. In other news, an autopsy was performed on the body of 44-year-old Leslie Small of Cunningham Village, Cayon, on November 11, 2020, by resident pathologist Dr. Adrian Nunes. Dr. Nunes concluded that his death was as a result of severe cranioencephalic trauma or injury to the brain due to a contusion he received when he fell from a roof at work. According to reports, close to midday on Monday, the Criminal Investigation Department was informed of a death at the JNF General Hospital. Investigations revealed that Mr. Small was on a building in Half Moon Frigate Bay at the time of the incident. Police say Mr. Small was taken to the hospital via private vehicle. He was pronounced dead upon arrival following an examination by the doctor at the hospital. And as we wrap up, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Senior CALYPSO Monarch competition will be undergoing some changes this year. That is according to Chair of the National Carnival Committee, Shannon Hawley. In an interview with ZIZ, Ms. Hawley said instead of tents being held at various locations as in the past, this year the Carnival Committee is producing a virtual tent series beginning this weekend.
We felt that in the face of COVID and with discussions with the authorities, etc., it would have been safer for the National Carnival Committee to take on the responsibility for the specific tents. So that is what we're doing. The tents are going to be produced on a weekly basis. So this week we have, on this Saturday, we have Legends. Then the 21st we have Proud Sounds, 28th Legends, and the 5th of December Proud Sounds. So there are 4 tents in this virtual tent series started this Saturday.
She said the tents will be much more than just calypsonians in front of a camera and will offer unique elements of production.
We have a huge set design, which I can't say too much about, but we have a huge set design. We're going to try to incorporate individuals in their homes in that set. We're going to try to make you feel as festive as possible. There's a lot to sing about in 2020.
43 calypsonians are expected to be performing across the various tents over the coming weeks. The tents will be carried live on ZIZ TV and radio and will be streamed on the Carnival Committee's Facebook and YouTube channels at 8 p.m. each night. We now move on to news on the regional scene. While rain is something that is essential for agriculture, too much of one thing can be detrimental. ABC's Jessica Russell toured some agriculture areas with agricultural workers as they assessed the damage in Antigua and Barbuda. Here's more in this report.
Our team went to the Northwest District Creekside settlement with agricultural assistance. They'll be using this farm to assess the damage caused by rains that fell earlier this week. One farmer in the area, Guto Montalban, says he's lost many crops.
Well, there's a lot of damage. When you come here, you can see. You can see we have the cabbage there and we have a pumpkin over there. All of them wash away. You know, another thing, we have a cucumber there and we have a butternut there. All of them won't just wash away.
For that side of Montalban's farm alone, agricultural assistant Kenrick Francis points to steep losses.
I estimate the damages to Gito over $100,000. We have a lot of vegetables, we have farm equipments, we have soil wash. The whole place is completely saturated right now.
However, that isn't the end of Montalban's losses. On this half an acre of land where he plants sweet potatoes, he lost about $80,000 worth of crops. Francis says it will take some heavy-duty work to make changes.
What we have to do, we have to come in with the long boom excavator and repair some areas so as the water can actually flow freely to the dam which is in the back. And that will actually cut down on some of the waterlogging from his neighboring farmers.
Francis says he's requested a backhoe since before the hurricane season started in June, but hasn't gotten it as yet. Meanwhile, Tony Roberts, who farms over at Creekside, considers himself fortunate.
I considered myself one of the lucky ones because I was in transition, just about to replant and stuff like that. Just plowed and getting my land prepared to go again. Then it rained.
However, Francis says other farmers have had their equipment damaged.
This is a roller drip line for some farmer. You understand? Yeah. So the water take up all this drip line, pack it right there. And that you're talking about over $2,000-3,000 there.
At Big Creek, Francis says boulders were pushed back by the heavy rain and will have to be re-erected to prevent this overlay from being weakened by raging waters. The agricultural assistant says he'll meet with all 150 farmers in his district to estimate the damage and help to create a way forward for the industry. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
Brazil is no longer ranked among the world's top 10 economies after being ravaged by the pandemic. Al Jazeera's Monica Yanukviu has more.
It's tea time in this slum in Rio de Janeiro. Baker sounds his horn to announce fresh buns for sale, but they cost 50% more than in January.
Food prices in general have become absurdly expensive since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. Unemployment is at a 14% record high, and many here are surviving on the government emergency aid, which will only last until the end of the year.
For Brazil's poor, the future looks bleak, but investors are also worried. The country is no longer part of the world's top 10 economies. Brazilians used to boast the 9th largest GDP. Now they rank 12 on the list, according to a report based on data from the International Monetary Fund.
Brazil's productivity has been declining since 2015. With the pandemic, the economy will shrink an additional 5%. Besides that, political uncertainty has helped devalue the Brazilian real, making it one of the world's worst performing currencies this year.
A weak currency favors exports, but the silver lining is a double-edged sword. With less food being sold on the domestic market, prices have gone up. Most Brazilians, like Angelina Pedrosa, are not interested in the country's international ranking. They're worried that staple foods like rice and black beans are 20% more expensive.
It's not only food prices that went up, construction material is also more expensive. These bricks, for example, cost 30% more than before the pandemic.
Luis Pereira da Silva lost his job as a truck driver and moved his belongings from an apartment in a poor neighborhood to a shack.
This is my palace. At least I have a roof over my head and a small vegetable garden.
Economy Minister Paulo Guedes says Brazil will grow once the pandemic is over and he can finally implement market-friendly reforms. But for most here, what matters now is putting food on the table. The economic recovery promised by the government still sounds like a long, hard, uphill battle. Monica Yanakiev, Al Jazeera, Rio de Janeiro.
On the international scene, the Chinese government is defending a new rule that has led to the dismissal of 4 Hong Kong politicians. It has prompted 15 other legislators from the opposition Democratic camp to resign in solidarity. The development is drawing international criticism and has raised questions about what it means for the next election. Al Jazeera's Adrian Brown reports.
Hong Kong's Legislative Assembly was quieter than usual on Thursday, now that almost a quarter of its lawmakers have resigned or been disqualified, and staging what's likely to be their last protest. The Chinese characters say Hong Kong's leader Carrie Lam has brought calamity to the territory and its people. She'll stink for 10,000 years. The slogan was displayed by Democratic lawmaker Lam Chuk Ting, who must now give up his office by the end of the month.
I will keep fighting for democracy of Hong Kong. We will never surrender. And we will hand together with all the Hong Kong people and the civil society and to fight against the dictatorship.
This is what China's leaders want to stamp out. Lawmakers behaving badly, with those from the Democratic camp accused of being the main culprits. China's government has condemned the mass resignation of almost all Hong Kong's opposition as a farce, with only themselves to blame for their downfall, says the sole Hong Kong delegate to China's most powerful political body.
What China has been doing is based on the Constitution and basic law. Therefore, everything should be done in accordance with the law. We cannot badmouth one country, two systems and the Chinese government.
Analysts say Hong Kong's legislature is set to become little more than a rubber stamp parliament, but dissent outside the chamber will likely continue.
What does this mean? This means continuing instability. You can push it down with the police, you can push it down with arrests, but it will just re-emerge.
It is not clear what this all means for elections, supposed to have been held 2 months ago, but now pushed back until September next year because of COVID-19. On Thursday, Chinese officials here in Hong Kong warned that legislators who resign or have been disqualified should not be eligible to stand in that poll. Wednesday's shake-up of Parliament comes just 4 months after China's government imposed a sweeping national security law on the territory that some critics call draconian. And in spite of continuing international criticism, China's leadership remains both confident and defiant. Adrian Brown, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.
Security and election officials from the U.S. government have released a statement declaring this year's presidential election was the most secure in American history. They say there is no evidence voting systems were compromised as President Donald Trump continues to make unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher reports.
It's unusual for Donald Trump to keep such a low profile. It's unusual for Donald Trump to keep such a low profile. He's made one appearance but hasn't spoken in public for a week. His Twitter feed continues to push claims of a stolen election. On Thursday, he tweeted a report alleging 2.7 million Trump votes were deleted from voting systems across the country. The company who made the machines says that didn't happen. And now a government election watchdog insists the election was the most secure in American history. The Elections Infrastructure Government Coordinating Council and the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Committees, part of the Department of Homeland Security, issued a joint statement and emphasised in bold type, there is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised.
One of the major contributors for making this the most secure election in U.S. history is the fact there were large numbers with vote by mail and actual having physical paper ballots.
One of Donald Trump's closest aides has reportedly been seeking out officials in various government departments he considers insufficiently loyal to Donald Trump with the intention of firing them. One of the people behind this report has told friends he expects to be culled in the coming days. On Capitol Hill, Democrats continue to urge their Republican colleagues to accept the election result and get back to business.
When it comes to the election, Republicans, congressional Republicans, don't have the evidence. They don't have the proof. They don't have anything. Neither does the president. Congressional Republicans are deliberately casting doubt on our elections for no other reason but fear of Donald Trump.
Okay. The Biden team is pushing for access to the daily intelligence briefing. They got them during the campaign, but have been blocked since the election by a White House contesting the result. More Republican senators have expressed concern that could impact U.S. security, while stopping short of contradicting the president.
Look, one of these two men will be the president of the United States. after the election results have come in. And I think at this point, just as a matter of protecting our nation's interests, I do think that both the president and his competition here, the Vice President Biden, should have access to those classified reports.
President Trump's legal team insists there's a process to follow that could take some time, and it continues to fundraise to help the president's efforts in court. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy. A moderate breeze of 17 miles per hour is moving from the east-northeast. Current temperature is 26 degrees Celsius, that's 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are not exceeding 6 feet. Expect partly sunny skies with a 20% or slight chance of a brief passing shower today, and fair to partly cloudy skies with a moderate chance of brief passing overnight showers. The flash flood watch that was issued on Thursday night has been discontinued. Sunset today will be at 5:36 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:15 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.